Howdy folks, today we're going to look at how to generate a list of choices for the user to select from Inquirer. You might wonder why this is something you want to do. It can be really handy to generate from a list rather than having the user free type stuff, because it really cuts down on user input mistakes and user input errors, and also gives the user the understanding of what is actually available to them to select. Let's get started. Okay, so we've got a simple database here. We've got our schema. Okay, we've got our user database. We have a users with a username and name, and of course the ID. And then we've got some randomly generated seed data. Note I didn't put the ID in here because the IDs are auto-incremented. So for our first attempt at this, we're basically going to have the user type in the full username they want to deal with. And then we're going to select from users where username equals that username, and then we're going to print those results. Okay, so username to look up. Well, let me see. Let me look at my seeds. Okay, my type. Let's try Mystic Muse 28. Oh, I didn't get anything. Oh, because I typoed it. Well, let's try that again. Mystic Muse 28. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Okay, well, let's try Pixel Pioneer. Oh, I typed that wrong again. 77. Oh, yep, I still typed it wrong. You can see, especially with these usernames, are quite complicated. It's actually really easy to screw up typing a username. So this isn't an amazingly great way of doing a search. It'll work. Like you can see, we got to work here, but then your user has to know exactly what they're searching for. So let's try maybe a better one. This one actually gets a user ID. Okay, and selects users where ID. That's going to be a lot harder to screw up, isn't it? Okay, so let's see. I want to get information on Tech Savvy Wizard here. So, okay, much better. Maybe I put 7. Okay, cool. Maybe I put 29. Oh, that didn't work. And also, in order for this to work, I have to know the ID of the user. And to be perfectly honest, when users are using your system, they usually don't know the IDs. IDs are something that is often internal to your system, and so it's not really something you expose very often. I mean, I'm exposing it here, but this is an example. So it's actually kind of unlikely that they're going to know the ID. And, you know, I could put in some random text as well, and it just isn't going to work. So what we really want to do is we want the user to actually select from the list. So here's how we do that. First of all, I've got a function here called getUsers. And that just returns, I know there's a way to promisify MySQL too, I just haven't done it. This returns select star from users. Just fetches a full list of all of our users, all of our data that we want to work with. Now, I'm calling that. Then, I'm calling my Inquirer prompt. So users at this point is now an array of all the users in my database. Now, instead of a type input, I'm going to use a type list. My name is still going to be ID. I'm leaving that alone. And here, this is an appropriate select user ID rather than enter user ID. So you can see here we had enter user ID. Because now our user of our program, realizing I probably shouldn't have called these users, because now we have user of the program and user in the system, and that's just a little confusing. But anyway, now I'm selecting user. And then we have choices. So list is a special type of Inquirer prompt that you can put choices into. And you can put some hard-coded choices as well, and just have it so that people scroll through those choices. This is how we do main menus, things like that. But we can also return dynamic choices. So you can see here I'm mapping over my users. So what map does, just as a refresher, is it calls my callback function for every single element in my initial array and creates a new array that is based on the responses of that callback. So essentially, whatever I'm putting here is going to go into choices. Choices can take a simple array of strings, but it can also take an array of objects if you give it a name and a value Name is what gets displayed, but value is what actually gets selected in your response. So if I run this one, you can see suddenly it's different. Select user ID to look up, use arrow keys. And this is something that Inquirer does, which is pretty cool. I can just search through, and you notice it does wrap. So I can just keep going forever, up and down as well. And let's say I want to select Serene Dreamer 19. As soon as I hit enter, the value Serene Dreamer 19 is not actually what shows up in response to ID. It's the user ID. Whatever you put in value here is actually what Inquirer posts to the response. Then you can see I have that same query from our previous one where it's just selecting star from users where ID is our property and then grabbing the results. No different here. The difference is now how I'm selecting this. It is now basically impossible for the user to make a bad choice. Inquirer actually doesn't let them select something not in this list, and because I know all the IDs in this list exist in the database, it's going to be really hard for them to screw this up. So again, the first way we could do this is you could have them enter a username or a role name or like maybe an account name, something like that directly, and just search it, but this is really error prone and really easy to mess up. The second idea is you actually have them enter the user ID directly, and this requires your end user to actually know the user IDs, which they don't always. It will work quite well though. The third option is to actually select all of the elements and build a list of choices. And this is the one that we prefer because this one is the least error prone, and it also is the best experience for your users because let's say they only remembered part of the username. Well, if you give them that full list of choices, they could say, oh yeah, okay, let me see. Oh yeah, Aurora, I know Aurora was in it, so it's probably this one. So it gives them the opportunity to see what is even available to choose from, and means that they're always going to make a choice that is, well, there's ways to mess that up. Like if someone else was modifying the database while I was going through the selection and they deleted the user and then I tried to select that user, it's not going to show up. But it drastically reduces the possibility of error. Anyway, I just thought that was useful because it's a little complicated to set up. The idea isn't super complicated, but it is complicated to set up. So just to summarize again, you have your function here that selects all your data. You pipe that into the Inquirer prompt as an array of choices. And in this particular case, I'm using name and value separately so that I can make it look nice and still get the appropriate user value, because looking up by ID is just more efficient, yeah. Anyway, I hope this is helpful. I'll see y'all next time.